There's a reason most people study for hours and still forget everything a week later. And it's not because they're lazy or stupid or not gifted, it's because they were trained. Yes, trained to learn the wrong way. From the very first day of school, you were conditioned like a machine. Memorize, regurgitate, forget, over and over. You were never taught to learn. You were taught to obey, to repeat, not to understand, to score marks, not to think. That's why when you sit down to study something that actually matters, a skill, a concept, a language, your mind fights back. You get tired, distracted, bored, because deep down, your brain associates learning with pain, not power. See, the system doesn't want thinkers. It wants repeaters, because a thinker questions. A thinker breaks patterns. A thinker cannot be controlled. And the moment you start learning in the way your brain was designed to, you stop being predictable. You start seeing what others can't. But here's the truth that schools hide behind exams, marks, and grades. Your brain doesn't learn through repetition. It learns through revelation. When something truly clicks, your neurons fire differently. They wire themselves around meaning, not memory, around curiosity, not commands. And this is where the real learning method begins, the one schools will never teach you. Because if everyone used it, classrooms would collapse overnight. Imagine this: students who don't need teachers to explain things, people who can learn faster than the system can test them. The government, the curriculum, the institutions, all of it loses control when your brain wakes up. That's why they keep you trapped in the illusion of hard work. They say, study more hours, revise again, make notes. It sounds good, it feels productive, but it's an invisible cage. You're doing, not understanding. You're memorizing, not transforming. And the scariest part? You start to believe that's how learning works, that knowledge is something you collect, not something you absorb. But learning was never meant to be mechanical. It's meant to be magnetic. When you truly understand something, you don't need to force it. It sticks. It stays. It becomes part of how you see the world. The real learners, the ones who rise above everyone else, they don't study like slaves. They study like scientists. They treat every concept as a system to be decoded, not memorized. They talk to their own brain, not to their textbooks. They manipulate their curiosity instead of killing it. And once you start using this learning method, your mind stops seeing study as effort and starts seeing it as evolution. You no longer ask, how long do I have to study? You start asking, how deep can I go? And the best part? You learn in hours what others take weeks to grasp. Because you're no longer fighting your brain's nature, you're working with it. So, if you've ever felt dumb, slow, or distracted, it's not your fault. It's programming, the kind that was installed in you years ago, without your consent. But in the next few minutes, you're going to uninstall it completely. Because once you understand how your brain actually learns, you'll never study the same way again. This is the learning method schools won't teach you, because if they did, their power over your mind would end. 1. Emotion before information. Your brain learns through emotion first, logic second. If you can't feel what you're learning, you can't keep it. That's why geniuses look obsessed. They feel the subject. Einstein didn't study physics, he romanced it. Feynman didn't memorize equations, he played with them like toys. But schools kill this feeling. They tell you, don't get distracted, don't get emotional, just focus. That's the worst advice ever given to a human mind. Because emotion is focus. When your curiosity is triggered, your brain releases dopamine, the attention chemical. It forces your neurons to hold on tighter, creating deeper memory pathways. So when you study something, don't try to be calm or robotic. Get obsessed. Get emotionally involved. If you can't find meaning, create it. Ask, how does this connect to me? How could this change my life? What if I could teach this to a child? Your brain needs a story, not a subject. 2. The Feynman inversion. Learn backward. This is where schools completely collapse. They start with information and expect understanding to follow. But the brain works the other way around. When you start with understanding, information naturally sticks. Feynman used to say, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. So here's the inversion. Before you study anything, try to explain it badly. Yes, even before you learn it. Because this forces your brain to seek clarity. It creates a vacuum, a cognitive gap that demands to be filled. That's when real learning happens. For example, if you're studying biology, start by explaining how cells work to a 5-year-old. You'll sound dumb, you'll make mistakes, but your brain will crave correction. When you finally read the textbook, your neurons attach the new information to the framework you built. It sticks 10 times deeper because now it's not random. It's personal correction. That's how top learners manipulate the brain's ego to make it learn faster, not by adding information, but by exposing its ignorance first. 3. The loop of curiosity. Manipulate your attention. Your attention is not weak, it's hijacked. Social media, dopamine loops, noise. All of it teaches your brain to expect instant reward. So when you sit down to learn and the reward doesn't come instantly, your brain leaves. To fix this, you must create your own curiosity loop. Every time you study something, end your session with an unanswered question, not a random one, a psychologically loaded one. Something like, why does this rule exist in the first place? What would happen if I broke this pattern? When did this idea first appear in history? The trick is to leave your mind open, unfinished, because an unfinished loop in your brain is torture. It must close it. That's why cliffhangers work in movies. The mind can't rest until the loop is complete. When you wake up tomorrow, your brain will want to return to the topic just to find closure. That's how you hack focus, not through discipline, but through psychological curiosity. 4. Teach to remember, but not to others, to yourself. Schools teach you to write notes, summaries, flashcards, mechanical stuff. But the most powerful form of memory is self-explanation. When you explain something to yourself, your brain activates the teacher mode. It doesn't just recall information, it reconstructs it. That reconstruction burns the concept into your neural pattern. Here's how it works. After you study something, close your book and explain it out loud as if you're teaching your past self, the one who didn't understand. Use simple words, use analogies, insult your old self if you have to. See? This is what you didn't get earlier. That's why it works this way. You're literally rewiring your neurons with your own voice. Every great learner talks to themselves, but not out of madness, out of mastery. That's what Feynman did. That's what Da Vinci did. That's what every outlier does. They don't just absorb knowledge, they argue with it. 5. The forgetting trick. Learn like a saboteur. Schools tell you to revise until you remember. Wrong. The brain doesn't grow by remembering. It grows by forgetting and rebuilding. When you let yourself forget a concept, then try to recall it without looking, your brain goes through a process called active retrieval. That process creates stronger memory bonds than repetition ever could. So the next time you study, don't review immediately. Wait. Let yourself forget a bit. Then attack the concept again. Your brain will rebuild it stronger each time, just like a muscle that tears and grows. This is how real learning compounds. Not by stacking information, but by breaking and rebuilding memory until it becomes automatic knowledge. Think about it. You spent years inside classrooms, surrounded by people who never questioned why they were there. You were told what to memorize, what to believe, what to repeat. And if you obeyed perfectly, they called you smart. But deep down, didn't you always feel something was off? That quiet voice in your head whispering, "This can't be what real learning feels like." That's the voice they tried to silence, because once you start thinking for yourself, the system loses control. So I want to know, when did you realize school wasn't built to make you intelligent, but obedient? Drop your answer in the comments, not just for me, but to show the world you woke up before they finished programming you.